If Ryan didn't hear this.
Are we going to get some more good shots of your jeans, the back of your fancy jeans?
You know what? I think these are the same jeans. So last time, we're recording this for future coaches, and last time I set up the thing and Sarah was teaching, and then I didn't think about it, and 2 seconds later I just go stand right in front of it. So we get, the video has just my butt for a few seconds. It's awesome.
Well, then you walk back in front of it like 2 more times.
Yeah. I'm the one who turned it on. You would think I would remember that there's a camera over there.
It's early.
Yeah. All right, well, Benisha's joining us later, and Darren's teaching a third of the Bible in 2 minutes. So maybe we could pray for him. Everybody's met Katie, right? Except for maybe John and Rebecca. You guys met Katie?
Hi.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Katie Guerin works in small groups with me and Sarah Taylor, and she makes sure everything happens. So she made sure breakfast happened today.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you have questions going forward and stuff, we should get her email us. It's Katie Guerin, Geurin. You'll get emails from her and stuff, but she's a good resource.
We've gotten emails from, I'm sure everybody has gotten emails from me already. Has everybody filled out a questionnaire, the coach's questionnaire? Have you gotten to that? Eric, did you?
All right, so this is our last training session. You guys missed the first week, but we've got the video, so I'll send it to you or send you a link. So yeah, after this, our last step is just to assign you guys some small group leaders and set you loose to go coach. So this is the last little bit. I'm really excited about what this means. I think this comes at a perfect time for our ministry. Our small group leaders, 2 years ago when we started, were like, yeah, we got this. We're going, we can do this. We love it. And then 2 years in, they're starting to go, wow, man, we're fighting over kids, or it's good. So a little encouragement, a little support would be exactly what they need as we go on. Hi, I'm Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. I'm Paula.
Paula, good to meet you. Are you here for coaches training?
Nope, wrong meeting.
Launchpad?
Yes.
Okay, West C.
Thanks.
She's like,
I didn't think she was learning.
I walked into Launchpad last week.
Good. Hey, Victoria, would you pray for us? Get started.
Dear Lord, I just thank you so much for this day, and I just pray, Lord, that you would just help prepare us for coaching and for just helping to encourage the leaders of our small groups here at IBC. I just pray that you would give Ryan exactly what he needs to say, and you give us the ears to hear it. It's all for your glory. In your name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. All right, so let's start with a story from high school. In high school, I played basketball, and my coach's name was Russell Ashley. And he was just what you'd think of as a coach. He was energetic and loud and often angry. If he wasn't yelling, then he wasn't coaching, that kind of thing. So but he was a great coach. And so he used to just ride me like he was always on me. Like my son's baseball coach says, up in my chili. So he was always in my chili. And I started getting kind of discouraged about it. I even thought about quitting basketball. And he called me into his office one day after practice, and he said, hey, you notice I've been riding you a lot lately? I said, yeah, I have noticed. He said, you notice I don't get on to Chris that way? And Chris, Lyle was, I hope none of you guys are like our distant relatives of Chris Lyle from high school, but was like the class clown. You know, he was just kind of always goofing off, didn't take anything seriously, didn't take basketball seriously. I'm not sure why he was on the team other than I went to a really small school and we could use all the warm bodies we could get. So anyway, he said.
I was thinking, I mean, like, you're not really the.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, look at, I played, yeah, so that tells you.
I was having trouble with this story.
What? Hey, are you questioning my. I got mad game.
His fast legs, there you go.
Yeah.
You're small, you can be sneaky.
Right. Things have gone downhill since high school as well. So anyway, you're getting off the. So Coach Ashley says, you know, if you notice I don't get on to Chris like that, and I said, yeah, actually, I have noticed that. And, you know, Chris is a bigger goof off than I am. And he said, why do you think that is? I don't know, Coach, could you hate me? And he said, it's because Chris doesn't want to get better. Chris isn't going to try harder. Chris has limited his own potential. He said, I think you have potential. I think you can get better. Well, that was all that I needed. So my high school I don't know if they still do it, has an award that they give at the end of every year in the athletic, banquet or whatever, called the Fighting Heart Award. It's for like the kid who doesn't have the natural giftedness, but just hustles and works hard and stuff like that. Well, I won that award my senior year in large part because I knew Coach Ashley all the years I was there was encouraging me, had my back. So that's my story from coaching. So what does that have to do with you guys? Well, if Sarah did her job, she made sure that you guys all are aware that we expect you all to wear whistles and tight coaches shorts and walk around yelling at people at IBC. So there you go.
See you next time.
No, that's not what we expect from you, from coaches. What we want you to have in common with Coach Ashley is this. We want our small group leaders to know that someone has their back, that someone expects great things from them, that someone believes in them. And I think if we have almost 100 small groups at IBC, if those leaders knew that someone believed in them, that would go a long way toward moving those groups from, just nice dinner and dessert on Thursday night to groups that are actually impacting our community and bringing light into our places. So we just want you to believe in these coaches and encourage them. So how do we do that? You're not going to do that with whistles in those shorts. How are we going to do that? With 3 Ds. So if you're here for Sarah's part, she talked about 3D coaching. Do you remember that? Discover, develop, and dream. Okay, well, Sarah talked about discovering your leaders' giftedness, their strengths, what it is about their group, discovering as much as you can about them. And she talked about listening, but I'm going to give you an extra handout about good listening, because I just think listening is, our culture does not listen well. We're not good at listening. And the small group leaders that you're coaching have a bajillion people in their life who want to talk at them. They probably have very few people in their life who will sit down and just listen to them. So I think listening is a really important ministry. So to add on to what Sarah told you about it, here's a little cheat sheet about some tips for good listening. We're not going to go really over that. You can just look at that on your own. So listen to them, encourage them, provide care. That's the discover piece. If you guys haven't, whenever you guys get around to it, watch that hour that Sarah talked about. Discover, that's good. That's the first thing. You have to know these coaches to effectively encourage them, right? So that's discover. But if you just become an expert on these coaches, right, but never encourage them to move along from where they are, then we're not doing much. So the next D is develop. Develop them as leaders. Develop them as believers. Develop them as friends, as brothers and sisters in their small group. Now I have 3 sort of tips under develop and 1 big disclaimer. And here's the disclaimer. You don't have to be a level 5, Six Sigma, John Maxwell mentored leader to encourage another leader. Okay, so that excuse that pops up in the back of your head, like, oh, I'm not an expert on leadership and I haven't been through whatever, Stephen Covey training, whatever. It doesn't matter. This isn't about transferring information from your comprehensive leadership knowledge to someone else's. It's just about walking that road with someone and pointing out little lessons along the way that can help them grow. I know your secret that none of you are the world's first perfect leader. So the cat's out of the bag. I already know that. But I will tell you that there are people who applied or asked about coaching that we didn't pursue. So you guys are, we recruited you or called you or said yes to you or whatever because we saw leadership in your interaction with others, your service here at IBC. So if you're not the experts, you're the closest thing we have. So, how was that? Hey, I'm just trying to match his level of encouragement.
I was scary to say.
So, so there's the disclaimer. Get rid of that excuse. Your coaches will see you. You're as much an expert as those coaches need for sure. And I'm excited about the group of coaches, you, Seven, and the others that we have. It's a really good team of coaches we have.
We're willing to work hard.
Yeah, right. Well, maybe we'll have a Fighting Heart Award.
Yeah. Fighting leader award.
Yeah. That's maybe. Yeah.
I'm just thinking that whoever wins that award had to go down a road we don't.
I know, we don't want to go down.
With some trauma in some
We're
area
assigning them
somewhere.
the problem. So back on track. Developing your leaders. Here's just a few quick tips. First, affirm their giftedness. Once you start once you start learning about them and what makes them tick and what they're passionate about, just encourage them in that. Like, point it out when they do something that they're good at. Hey, you did a good job with that. Whatever it was, when you meet with them or in front of their group, praising them in public is an awesome idea. Consult with them whenever you face a similar, like if they're really good at, I don't know, finances or something, then, give them a call whenever you have some finance question. Maybe finance is a bad example, but consult them on things that they're good at to honor their giftedness in those things. To teach from experiences. Now this is kind of an important nugget. You'll notice that when we do this, what we're doing today is we're not giving you curriculum to go through with your leaders, right? This isn't like a textbook in that we're expecting you to teach them all that stuff, because real growth doesn't happen most times out of a textbook like that. Real growth happens when real life situations arise and real people have to make real hard decisions in life, right? So instead of giving you the curriculum, we're asking you to get to know them and then walk with them, pointing out experiences that they can learn from. So a thing to remember in this is instead of doing that fill in the blank kind of process, look for ways to attach their experiences to those 3 core values that actually that we haven't talked about yet. We're going to talk about in just a minute. The 3 things that you'll hear from me if you follow the e-letter or you come to retreats or whatever, the things we pound into people's heads are authenticity, interdependence, and mission. So look for ways to tie their experiences back to those core values. Hey, maybe this is an opportunity for your group to be interdependent, for you guys to give and take a little and rely on one another. So think about ways to tie the experiences they're living to authenticity, interdependence, and mission. We're going to talk at length about authenticity, interdependence, and mission in just a minute. And then third, discern their growth edges. This is growth edges is a term that one of the books that we read was called Coaching Life-Changing Small Groups, and it talked a lot about this idea of growth edges, just what the next step is in their development as a leader. So you may see unhealthy leadership. You may see that that they want followers or minions more than they really want friends in their small group. You may see unhealthy behaviors or unhealthy relating or something like that. As gently as possible, point those out. So that's the hard part of coaching, right? Pointing out someone's growth edges. But as generally as possible, do that and refer to those as, hey, here's an opportunity that I see for you to try this, an opportunity for you to grow. Recommend some resources when you do that, or some exercises that you think will help them. And then fourth, there's four, not three, learn together. You can't have all the answers to every problem or situation or theological question that your small group leaders are ever going to bring to you. If you did always have an answer, then they would probably start to see you as a windbag and start to tune you out, right? So just learn with them. And if you don't have an answer or a good solution or a good idea, then just admit it. Go, man, I don't know, I'm stumped on this one. But let's pray about it together. Let's call an advisor. Let's walk this together. So that authenticity of just being, hey, I don't know, man. I'm not sure what to do in this, goes a long way. Now, sometimes you will know. Sometimes you'll be like, yeah, our small group went through that, and here's what we did, and you just need to go to XYZ. But when you don't, just be honest and learn together with them. So that's develop. We went pretty fast. Any questions about that? These are things you'll do when you talk with them, probably one-on-one. So Sarah talks a lot about what we expect from you in terms of number of times you'll touch base with them. I want you to meet with them face-to-face at least once a session. And then have another meeting that could be on the phone if it needs to be, but pray with them at least another time a session. Does that make sense? So you're really touching base with them twice per session. And I would say that any interaction really works for that, except interaction mediated by a computer or the internet. So Facebook messages and emails are great for giving information. They're not great for building relationships. So that doesn't count. Email them all you want. That doesn't count toward your personal touches. So the places you're going to do this are conversations with them if you meet with them. And then you can also visit their groups if you want. I don't think Sarah talked much about that because that's not a requirement. But let me tell you this real quick about visiting groups, and then we'll move on. I try to visit about one small group a week. There's still small groups I haven't gotten to. In fact, like all of y'all, I've been to yours.
Been to ours, yeah.
Like
it would
once.
be super awkward if you came to ours.
Yeah.
It's all girls. They're like in their 20s and you're like, oh yeah. They're so awkward.
I've been to all girl groups before. We had a good visit.
That's good.
Anyway,
You might want to think about sending Christine to that one.
yeah, that'd be good. Or Sarah.
Sarah and Christine is more than welcome at any time.
But I'm not. Anyway, let me just say this about visiting groups. Every time that I've done that, dozens of times now, it's so encouraging for me and for them. And your small group, the small group that you go visit, will not see it as, oh, this is like Big Brother checking on us, or controlling or something. They'll see it as, in my experience, they always receive it as encouragement. We always have a great time. I always leave those meetings being really encouraged, because it's just neat. It's encouraging to sit at a table and watch people. You can just see them loving each other across the table, or the living room, or whatever. So, not a requirement, but if you visit their groups, that's a great way to do that. So, and you probably wouldn't coach them like this. Hey, Leanne, that was really, you could improve on your table discussion, in the middle of their group. Probably not.
Right. Have you ever attended a group that was having major conflicts?
Yeah.
Maybe something.
I've never been in a group where they fought and yelled at each other in the middle. But I went and sat with a group a while back that one of the couples was in the middle of divorce, and they're trying to figure out, how do we love them, and how they both want to just keep coming. So they're getting divorced, but they both have friends in the group, and they both want to keep coming, but both of them coming to the small group is awkward.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough. So anyway,
Like hesitation, like are you alternating?
right, like the kids.
Well, and you know, when your friends get divorced, we all have opinions as to who.
That could cause
I mean, we've heard the stories, and we all know what we
Yeah,
think
this
they ought to
group-
do.
How did the group handle that? Did
They were, I think they were really mature and really gracious about it. And this is a young, a group of young families, like they have babies. They're in their 20s. And I thought they were really mature about it, and they weren't, I mean, I think there were, they had opinions about where the trouble was coming from. But it takes two to tango. And, but they didn't gang up on one or the other. They told them they're both welcome. I think what's happened now, that was several months ago. The last I checked on them, he was still coming to the group, and she wasn't coming.
So it kind of naturally just.
Yeah. But yeah.
What seemed like a good idea 6 or 8 weeks later wouldn't be such a good idea anymore.
So to answer your question, yeah, we have groups that have conflict, and you're again. I trust your leadership and your judgment to say, hey, have you guys tried this, or pray for them, this way or whatever, to help them towards solving some of those issues. But I don't expect that you're going to solve every issue. I don't expect that any of us could have sat in that room with them and stopped that couple from getting a divorce. I don't know. Would have been awesome if we could have. But so don't feel like all your small groups have to be, happy, perfect little children like your children. It gets messy whenever you start getting people's lives. Does that answer your question? Is that good?
It does.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to know what you had experienced in your visitations.
Yeah. And let me tell you this, that small group, I think they feel, I only visited their small group once, and then I met with the guy, the leader a few times. I think they feel supported. They are all in with the small groups ministry, and they went through the couple got divorced. So because their group wasn't always happy and everything's copacetic, didn't mean that they necessarily had a bad experience with, what I mean? So they feel led and they feel encouraged despite what they went through. So if that's what happens with your groups, they go through something hard, but they know that they can always call Ray. They've got somebody to encourage them. That's a win. And because I think they'll grow. I think that some of the couples, I don't know about the husband and wife. There seems to be some bitterness that they need to work through. But the other couples in there are stronger spiritually. I know they hit their knees a lot more. They've grown through the process of that. So, by the way, that's part of. So we're getting off track. But what we tell rookie leaders is that the growth thing, just like we're not giving you the curriculum, it's not a fill in the blank to grow closer to Christ. What we expect is if you stick people between the scriptures on one hand and their brothers and sisters on the other, that they will grow as life happens. So, they lose their job, or they go through a divorce, or the kid gets arrested or something. Those things will spur them to grow as long as they're stuck between those two sources of life. If they disconnect from the scriptures, but they have close friends, well, that's a country club, and that doesn't necessarily help them grow spiritually. If they are in the scriptures, but they're not being challenged, sharpened, iron sharpening iron, that can become a kind of narcissistic little, there's a guy in my family who knows the original languages, has seminary degrees, knows the scriptures backward and forward. He's burned so many relational bridges that he's sort of stuck to out there by himself. Anyway, you got me chasing rabbits, but the point is, if they're stuck between the scriptures and encouraging relationships, they will grow as life happens. So that's sort of the model of growth that we're looking could happen. Okay, any other questions?
And it's also good for the group. I mean, as our group has gone through some things, you know, I mean, just as, you know, people have had issues come up in their lives as we've just prayed with people through that. I mean, it draws the group together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's not only personal growth, there's growth as a group.
Yeah. And I think that, as you said, is key, praying through it together. And prayer, none of this is going to work if we're not praying about it, and the Holy Spirit's not leading it instead of us. So that's develop. So dream, the last D in 3D discipleship or 3D coaching. Let me tell you about my dream for small groups at IBC. Let me do that by telling you a story. There's a small group leader here named Christopher who leads a small group, and he also mentors a kid through our single parent ministry. And then they invited the mother of that kid to their small group, so now their small group sort of has adopted this single mom and her kid. Christopher also volunteers at a homeless ministry in Fort Worth called Beautiful Feet, and then he also has like a real job, like he works at an insurance company or something. So last Christmas, the lady who chairs the Christmas fund drive committee or whatever for their insurance company, they do like a toy drive, and like a lot of companies do. She comes to Christopher and she goes, "Hey, every year we do this thing, and if people bring toys, we give it to Toys for Tots, and if people bring clothes, we give it to Goodwill or whatever. But usually somebody will give cash, and we don't have any place to give. We don't have a charity to give the cash to. And so me and the committee were talking about it, and we would like to give any cash donations that we collect to your small group." And Christopher was like, "Why? Like, so we can have a pizza party?" Like, that's what my small group would have done with it, right? We would have gone out or something. She said, "No, we know about," she said, I know about this, the single mom that you're trying to help, and I know that you're, help homeless people. We just think that you do something awesome with the money." So that's secular, an insurance company, right? A secular, the world recognizing the love that Christopher and his small group have for one another. That is John 13 in action, where Jesus said, "They will know us by our love. They will know you by your love." So that's my dream for small groups at IBC, that we would love one another so well and love the world around us that people not in the church would take notice. That's the world wanting to fund the ministries of IBC. How awesome is that? So how do we do that? Now, that story isn't like a prescription for how this should always work. I don't think that every small group at IBC should be involved in homeless ministry and single parent ministry and insurance company Christmas drives, right? The how that works is going to be different for every group. Every group's going to have its own how that we love one another well, that we grow deep relationships that advance the kingdom of God in dark places. So your small group, your leaders might need a little encouragement, a little help to dream of how are we going to do this? How is our group going to matter, going to make a difference? We don't prescribe that. The small groups here are largely autonomous. I mean, the small group leaders have a lot of freedom, right? And so we're big on the why. They need to understand authenticity, interdependence, and mission. We want them to know that we're about growing deep relationships that advance the kingdom. But the how is largely up to them. And so a little encouragement to help them dream about, where could God take this small group? How could we be part of a story that's like that one? So here's some tips for that. Pray. Again, like David said, I think that's foundational to what we're doing. James 1:5 says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God." It's pretty simple. "Who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you." So pray with them and pray for them. Then examine, look closely and prayerfully at the condition of their group, of the leader, of the leader's hearts, of the group's talents, of their assets, where they live, their demographics. All those things will play a part in what kind of ministry they have, right? If there's lots of kids in the group, their group is going to serve and impact the world in a different way than if there's no kids in the group. Experience. What has your leader or their group experienced in the past that might inform their future? That group that I talked about that went through divorce, that might lead to them being part of divorce care ministry or something. That hasn't happened, but just as an example. There'll be a lot more of that kind of talk about story, by the way, at the leader retreat if you guys are coming. It's going to be all about the story of where God's taking us. It's going to be cool. And then innovation, which is just the only word I could come up with to say, try to help them imagine new ways of impacting the world around them. Imagine new ways of overcoming the challenges they face. Here's what happens too often in our groups. They face some kind of hurdle, and it could be anything from we can't figure out what to do with the kids to we really feel like we ought to be involved in homeless ministry again. But we tried it. We tried to go to a soup kitchen, and it didn't work out, and we couldn't get the schedules to jive, and we got lost trying to find the soup kitchen, whatever. And they quit. They're like, well, it didn't work out, and I don't want to make waves. And so there's this, they feel called to this ministry, they want to serve, and they hit some obstacle, and they go, okay, well, put that on the back burner, and they never get back to it. So just helping them think innovatively or think of new ways to tackle those problems or to be engaged in those missions that they feel called to. New ways, to handle those obstacles that come up. So a new night to meet, a new place to serve, those kinds of things. What doesn't come naturally to a lot of our small groups is just the idea of let's try this and see if it works. Like everybody feels like, we feel like, again to the homeless thing, we feel like maybe homeless is where we got to serve, and we're going to try this one way, and if the one way doesn't work, then we're out. What they don't think of is, well, that didn't work, let's try this other way to serve homeless people. Or let's try it on a different weekend, or whatever, that doesn't always come natural. So encourage them to take turns, or to try something new, to figure out where they're called. Yeah.
What do you do in situations where folks say, well, if God wanted us to do this, it would have worked, it would have happened? I mean, that's my first instinct is to slap them, but
it's probably not very groupy.
No.
Yeah, if it still bothers them that there's homelessness or poverty or sex trafficking or whatever, then God's still at work in their heart, right? If it didn't work out the first time, well, there's someone else who doesn't want them involved in that. I mean, we have an enemy, and that's another thing that I think we forget a lot. So anyway, let me give you just a quick example from my group. We, a few years ago, not a few years ago, it would have been like last year, I don't know. We're reading in Matthew 25, I think it is, where Jesus is talking about, I was thirsty and gave you water, I was hungry and gave you food, the least of these passages. And there's 6 kinds of people: hungry, thirsty, prison, stranger, naked, sick. 6 kinds of people. And we thought, you know what we ought to do? We ought to just do each of those. We ought to serve each of those kinds of people like one at a time. So we take like a quarter or 6 months or something and feed hungry people. And then like 6 months and clothe naked people. We're thinking maybe like laundry love, and then visit prisoners. We could find a way to do each of those 6. And then at the end we'll go, okay, which of those do we like best or something like that? So I love that idea. Here's what happened. At the time, whenever we had that great brainstorm, there was a lady in our group that had brain cancer. So we were like, okay, well, let's start with the sick people. It's Melinda. We got to take care of Melinda. And we did, and she's cancer-free now, which is awesome. And then, that was like as soon as she got cancer-free, I got cancer. So anyway, we're stuck in the sick people for a while. But anyway, that's just an idea to say, try some things. As they're dreaming about where their group is going, try some things. That doesn't always come natural to them. Okay. That's dream. Any questions?
It's just, you started out with discover. I wasn't quite, I maybe missed when your central thesis or point to discovering, developing, and dreams like that, but discover again, can you just...
That's what Sarah talked about last week, but she just meant discover who they are, discover their spiritual gifts, their personality.
Okay.
It means get to know them.
Okay.
Before you
That
start
was it.
developing and dreaming.
That was
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so that is good talk, but we gotta go fast now. Before we get to the values, I'm gonna skip to some real logistical things that we want to happen with you guys. There are several things we want you to collect, data that we want you to collect from these small group leaders. We're going to skip values real quick. We'll come back to it. Okay. So Fellowship 1 is the database that the church uses. It's the database that you use to check kids into, to church, and everything that we do uses this database called Fellowship 1. And your group leaders have the ability to log in and change information about their group. So they can put in there, we meet on Wednesday nights, and we meet at this person's house and whatever. They can change the roster of who's in their group. So if somebody moves away, they can take them off, they can add people, they have all that control. You guys don't have that control to change their groups. But we want you to encourage them to keep up with that. It's a huge help to us not to, one, do the labor to maintain all the groups, but two, to not chase it down, because I don't know who's not coming to y'all's group. Y'all do, right? So for those reasons, anyway, we really want them to maintain their group in F1. So there's a training video. You guys will get a link to it in your email. That's about 10 minutes long. It shows them all where to go to log in, how to change all of those attributes, all that stuff. It's on YouTube. You'll get a link to that. We really want them to do that. Another thing is, I really feel like, I suspect there's a lot of waste in our database right now. Because we grew so fast and we got like 100 groups now, and I can't keep track of all of them. I know for sure that there's some that have stopped meeting, or there's some that have, changed or whatever, and our database is out of date. So especially here at the beginning, we really want to get a better picture of what's going on out there. So that all happens in F1, and all of that is me just pointing you to that video on YouTube. So I'd love for you guys to watch it, and then force at gunpoint your small group leaders to watch it.
It's really not hard. Until you get the
Yeah, Victoria's done it.
I think I updated the roster maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, if it doesn't change, now.
It has changed, so I mean, this is something I need to go fix, yeah.
Well, yeah, so, by the way, they will all get an email from me at the end of each session asking them to fill out a survey about their experience, like, for our feedback, and asking them to update their roster in F1. So they will get reminded, but y'all are going to help us close the loop on that. Y'all are also going to help us close the loop on forming groups. So real quick, here's how that happens. Right now there's a class of people that have registered for small groups right over there. They're all waiting anxiously to find their new besties in the small group. And so the way we do that is, instead of like listing all of our groups, like here are all the Tuesday night groups, and they meet in these different cities or whatever, and you go shop for your group like you shop Target, Walmart, or whatever. We ask the people who sign up to give us what they're looking for in a group. We have their, all their demographic, age, marital status, address, all that. And we try to place them in groups that fit what they're looking for, what's most appropriate for them. I can tell you all the reasons why we do it that way. So Henry Cole is our volunteer that is a spreadsheet mastermind, and he sorts through all those registrations. We have, I think, 83 or 84 families registered for the fall, new families registered for the fall session. So he's got this giant spreadsheet, and he sorts through, and he sorts them into groups. And so what he does is he will send an email to the new registrant and their assigned small group leader, and copy one of you and say, hey, new registrant, here's your small group leader, John, and he's gonna, be reaching out to you about their next meeting on Thursday night or whatever. And John's coach is Ray, and so you're just sort of watching. Here's what has happened in the past. We've done that whole thing without the coaches, and we give them to the small group leaders and we trust them to make contact, and they don't. And so we wind up with these people that say, hey, I registered for small groups and my leader never called me. And that sucks. That's embarrassing for me, and that's not, how we want to treat our brothers and sisters. So, not all small group leaders have done that, but it's happened way too many times. So, now that you guys are getting the email and you're already planning to touch base with them twice a session, Ray, you can follow up with John and say, hey, you got 3 people assigned to your group, I noticed. Have you contacted them yet? So we're counting on you guys to sort of close the loop with those new group assignments. One other thing about group forming is a giant rabbit hole. We will assume that all of our groups are closed to new members unless they tell us otherwise. Now, a lot of them do tell us otherwise. And if their group, every session we do a search of all the groups, and if their group is like 6 people or less, then we actually reach out to them and say, hey, are you open to new members? Because you only have 6 people. But we're not gonna add people to a group unless the group leader gives us the okay. And the reason for that is, back to our core values, authenticity is that first value, and it submarines authenticity if you're always adding new people to the group, or if you're adding 2 new people to the group right in the middle of the group dealing with divorce or something really. So we want the group to be a safe place. We want there to be authenticity in the group. And so to protect that, we don't add new members unless the leader tells us it's okay. Now, a lot of times the leader does tell us, yeah, we're open, and we only have 8 people or whatever, so send us another couple. So that's one of the things that your leader can mark in his, whenever he watches the video and updates his roster, is he can mark whether his group is open or closed. So that's what that means. They have that, again, leaders have a lot of autonomy, they have that authority to decide. Now, the Sanders are going through some really tough times. This wouldn't be a good time to add somebody. It's up to them. Okay, any questions about that? Again, you'll get email with information about that, but that's kind of what we expect there. Okay, so want you to help with F1 data collection, really just encouraging them to do it, and then we'd love for you to just encourage their participation in stuff the ministry does, like this. We talked about F1 data. Every Monday during this session, okay, if you guys aren't already familiar, there's 3 10-week sessions in the year. We'll start the next one September 8th. So every Monday it's every Monday except the summer, they get an email, all the leaders get an email from me that has important dates, and it has training ideas, and it has like a little icebreaker, all kinds of stuff. So if they're not already subscribed to the e-letter and reading it, we'd love for them to do so. At the end of every session, so 3 times a year, they get a survey from me, or actually from Sarah or Katie, that asks them how successful their group is. So, pause. How do we determine what's a successful group? It's not the one that has grown to 60 people. It's the one that exhibits authenticity, interdependence, and missionality. So we ask them questions. People authentic in your group. Is confession of sin happening in your group? Are you interdependent? Do you guys share life together outside of the 1-hour meeting on Wednesday night or whatever? Are you missional? Here's the sentence. Here's the fill-in-the-blank sentence that we give them at the rookie training. At regular and recurring intervals, we expect your group to turn from its inward-facing circle and stand shoulder to shoulder against the vandalism of shalom. So whatever it is that bugs your group, we want you to not be a holy huddle, but at regular intervals, stand shoulder to shoulder to advance the kingdom. Their group is a great example. You guys do Family Promise and probably a zillion other things.
People in our group do those things. Getting all the group to do any one thing is very trying.
Yeah. There'll always be outliers.
Right, and to some degree, our group, most everybody in our group is involved in something, so we kind of encourage that, participate as appropriate. But we've got 3 missionary families, and so we just
Somebody's on staff at Alarm. I mean, I don't need to go tell her to go find something to do.
Yeah, do you guys know Warren and Sarah Leonardi? They're small group leaders. Everyone in their group has been to Haiti, except I think one family. So now everybody in their group's like, when are you guys going? You're the holdouts. But Haiti is like their... So anyway, that's surveys. So e-letter surveys. The leader retreat is coming up. We do one of those every year in the fall. 2 or 3 times a year we'll do big brunches, which is just 9 o'clock in this room or one of these rooms. We'll feed you brunch. We'll talk about some small group hot topic, table discussion or childcare or whatever topic of the day is. So those are fun. Those are just an opportunity to meet other small group leaders. Sometimes they feel like they're a little bit on an island, so it's good to get them in a room together. And then rookie training, we do, it's not on any kind of set schedule. We do as we get a class full of new leaders to train. So I'd love for them to participate in all those things. Okay, any questions about that? All right. So let me go backwards. Values. Let me just sort of harp on some of the stuff that we tell them in rookie training that they hear from me all the time about authenticity, interdependence, and mission. Those are what defines a successful group here. So let me just talk about each one of those really, really quickly. The first one is maybe the hardest, but it's essential. Those small groups have to be safe places. If we're going to share life together, then the mask have to come off. We have to really know one another. Now sometimes, I mentioned confession of sin, sometimes that means confessing sin. But that's not all that it means. Every small group meeting doesn't have to be a confession booth. It just means being honest about what's going on, how we feel. It means saying stuff like, I know what the church answer is in this situation, but right now I just really don't like the church answer. I just feel like being selfish. Or stuff like, I didn't get the raise that I thought I was going to get at work, and now I feel like a fool for buying that new car. My dad used to say the things that you're saying right now, and he turned out to be a hypocrite, and so now I'm having a hard time trusting you. Just saying what's really going on in our hearts. That's what we mean by authenticity. It means being the person that you are. I read, small group gurus, and there's just one guy named Larry Osborne that actually spoke here a while back, and he said, you can sort all of your relationships in life into 2 categories, weak tie and strong tie relationships. Weak tie relationships are formed around proximity and commonality. So you have a cube next to them, or your kids are on the same soccer team, or whatever. You see them, right? The only thing that moves a relationship from weak ties to strong tie is vulnerability. When somebody gets vulnerable and authentic in the relationship, then it deepens the bonds in that relationship. So that's authenticity. That's what we're after. That'll happen not right away. That won't happen in the first small group meeting that your groups have, right? It might not happen in the 80th. It might not happen for years, and it'll happen gradually. So another guy that I read named Bill Search says, think of every relationship in your small group like a bridge, and every relationship, every relational bridge has to be strong enough to support the weight of whatever truth you're putting on it, right? So if you're dropping a really heavy load of truth on a relationship, so the example I use is, hey David, it was really nice to meet you this morning in line at Starbucks. I was wondering if we could hang out next week because I kind of have this cocaine habit and I'd like to talk to somebody about. That's like way too heavy truth for a brand new relationship. So just realize that those relationships are going to develop over time, and they're all going to develop at different speeds. In this relationship, me and Becky, there's 2 people, 1 relationship. If you add David, there's 3 people, 3 relationships. In a group of 4, there are 6 relationships. In a group of 6, there are 15 relationships. In a group of 12 people, there are 66 relationships. So that's a lot of moving parts, and they're going to develop at different rates, speeds. So people will feel closer to some people in their groups than others, and that often those bridges will be stronger among some of the groups. Okay, so that's authenticity. Any questions about that? Interdependence. I wouldn't have expected this to be like one of the core values that we talk about a lot. I really feel like it came from God. So before I took the job, IBC hired me not from a ministry background, and so before I took the job, I felt like I needed to kind of get my head around this sort of life change of, career in ministry. And so I went to the woods for 2 nights. I spent 2 nights and 3 days wandering around Crockett National Forest in East Texas and sleeping in this 3-sided hut. And so while I was there, I read Acts a lot. I felt like kind of drawn to Acts a lot. And when I got back, everybody was talking to me about Acts. Like every Bible study was from Acts. And some things stood out, and this is one of the things that stood out from that. So does anybody have a Bible? Do 2 people have a Bible?
Yes.
I don't have a Bible on my phone.
Yeah, or a phone. That can be. Acts 2, 42 through 47. These are going to be familiar passages. Leanne, you got that? 2, 42 through 47. And somebody can get Acts 4.
It's already underlined.
It's just like.
It's already underlined.
They don't have it, Acts 4.
Acts 4, 32 through 35.
Do you want me to read it?
Go for it.
They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and miraculous signs were done by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. How far do you read?
Through 47.
Okay. Selling their possessions and goods, they gave to everyone as he had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved.
Okay, real quick before you go, David. Notice a few things stand out to me about that passage. One, they mentioned more than once breaking bread together. The agenda that we encourage small groups to follow is eat, pray, learn. So break bread together. That doesn't mean that the small group leader has to, cook every week. It just means, like our group, it's like everybody grab Chick-fil-A.